Friends, I had the opportunity this week to sit down with Angela Youngs. Angela is the founder of Ground Soap, a beautiful organic soap product line. And Angela also celebrated her 15-year anniversary this summer. We dive deep into what it looks like when many of us did not grow up learning how to become an entrepreneur. We didn't have courses in high school, perhaps, that allowed us to look at what that could be for us in our future. So, Angela and I discussed the power of influence, what it looks like whenever you surround yourself with people who are doing things that allow you to tap into what that could look like for you. Angela and I had a beautiful conversation. I hope you enjoy it. And coming up next. Hey everyone, welcome to Lucy's Ma's Living Room podcast. I am your host, Diane Lozo. And on this podcast, we are sitting and getting cozy with people who have been really following their own light and following the magic that ignites their inner essence. And today I'm so excited to have Angela Youngs on the show. Hi.
Hi.
I am so excited to sit with you. I have followed you for almost your whole career with the Ground Soap. I remember buying the Medicine Man, I think it was the name of it back in the day, in Toronto in a beautiful boutique. And so now it's 15 years later. So I'm really excited to really tap into what does it look like to be 15 years in business as a woman entrepreneur, and just dive into how that even started, what allowed you to go from that vision to actually creating and then continuing to evolve that. And so before we get started, a little bit about Ange. Ange is a visionary behind Ground Soap, which has been in essence and in inception since 2009. And this is a home-based kitchen, out of her kitchen business that has now been all over the world internationally. So she is catering to clients everywhere from France to however many countries you can share with us and our audience around that. But Ange, I really wanted to really just dig in and get started. So how did you come up with Ground Soap? What does Ground Soap mean? Where did you come up with the name? And how did that go from in your kitchen to flourishing to where it has been? And so I'm just really curious. And the reason why I love chatting with women such as yourself is that many people who are maybe watching this right now, they have that vision, they had that igniting in their own essence. And then what happens is we have this inner critic. And I would love to share through your story, your relationship with the inner critic and how you had it, kind of shut up a little bit to get you to where you are now after 15 years. You celebrated your 15-year anniversary, I think this summer.
Yes. Yeah. Just last month. Yeah.
Just last month. So congratulations. 15 years is a long time.
Yes, it has flown by, but yeah, when you think about it is quite a long time. But when you're working hard and there's so much on the go all the time, it just 1 week turns into a month, and it goes from there.
Yeah. So share away. Where would you like to dig in?
Okay, well, I can start where it started. My love of scent, my addiction to scent started when I was very young. I did a lot of gardening, lawn chores and stuff like that with my mom and dad outside. And I really started loving the smells of plants. So like herbs and stuff that we would grow. And I would just like smush them in my fingers and like, what would like basil and this smell like together? And so that's kind of where it started. I remember sitting on a picnic table thinking about that. And I've always really respected where those plants and flowers and herbs and everything come from. And they come from the ground. So years and years of me becoming a scent addict and a product junkie and stuff like that. Oh gosh, I'm going sideways here. So just years and years of that interest growing. And I worked in the service industry for a really, really long time. I made great tips. And so I had lots of money. I didn't have a lot of, I didn't have rent. I was still living with my parents. So I was blowing my money on products, anything that had a great smell, I would purchase it. So let's, fly into, I was 35 years old and, or 32 years old and still working as a bartender in the service industry. And I was becoming quite bitter, really frustrated. You have awesome customers, but you're dealing with a certain type of, customer repetitively. And I couldn't refrain from saying things, that weren't potentially very nice. And my friend said, I think maybe you should consider a different, career, think about that. And I thought, oh gosh, she is my best friend still. And she was my manager at the time. And I thought, okay, that must have been pretty hard for her to tell me. So I'm going to take her advice and start, feeling things out. It was pretty
Wow.
challenging because that working in the service industry was all I really knew. But I knew that if I could work this hard for somebody else, I could work
Mhm.
even harder for myself. And
Wow.
so, yeah. And so I just kind of kept that in the back of my mind. My husband, he wasn't my husband at the time, but he suggested I do something with essential oils. And
Okay.
and so I was like, what am I going to do with essential oils? Like, how am I going to build a career with essential oils?
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
bitter, not really open-minded at that time. I just didn't want to be a 50-year-old bartender. I didn't want to be, I know that there are lots of 50-year-old bartenders, but for me, I just couldn't see myself working for, 30 years behind a bar. And
Yeah.
so my husband said, well, why don't you make soap? Why don't you? And I was like, I'm not going to make soap. Like, that's
Yeah.
ridiculous. And
Yeah.
so that just kind of, it just sat with me for a little while. And then I thought, yeah, well, maybe I could make soap. And so
Mhm.
I talked with Glenn about it, and we found this recipe on the internet. Facebook didn't exist at that time.
What? Oh my god.
Yeah,
There was a world when Facebook didn't exist?
yeah, like 2000. This was 2007, the end of 2007. I think it started
Yeah. It
2008.
yeah, somewhere around that, you're right, yeah, in the
Yeah, yeah.
2006, 2008 era.
And so we found this old school recipe using lard, and we made the soap. I was really afraid to use sodium hydroxide, which is lye, because it can explode, and there's all
Oh,
these
wow.
things that it can do if it's mixed with the wrong things and stuff like that. And so there wasn't that much information available.
Mhm.
And so we made the soap on the front porch, and I had this really, really long wooden spoon, and I was so afraid, and I was reaching and stirring, and the soap came out, and it was horrendous. It was awful. It was so hard. It was itchy. It was awful. And I thought, I don't want to do this then. If this is what it turns out to be, I'm not doing it. And I'm the type
Mhm.
of person that if something's not perfect right away, I
Yeah.
kind of I kind of give up on it. I don't know. Like, I used to be that type of person.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I was just afraid maybe of pushing through that, of that fear. I
Mhm.
was really intimidated. And
Yeah.
and yeah, so I sat on that for a little while, and I thought, you know what? I have to follow through with this. I really
Yeah.
have to, I haven't really ever done that before. I've taken on challenges, and I've just kind of let them, fall to the side after
Yeah.
procrastinating for a really, really long time. And I needed to prove to myself that I could do it.
Wow.
And I wasn't planning on starting a business yet.
Yeah.
I just need to dive into something different, make time for me essentially. And
Mhm.
so, I started to do that. I started doing research and, figuring out the science of the bubble and how all those ingredients work. And I knew, I was spending my money on really expensive products, and I started looking at those ingredients and thinking, geez, I could make something. I mean, some of these
Mhm.
ingredients aren't great. And, I can definitely make some soap. I might need to still purchase some moisturizers and stuff, but I can make a really good face cleansing soap. And so that was
Yeah.
kind of my mission, to make the best soap I possibly could right from the get go. And we both know,
Wow.
coming from a small town, people, you're afraid of judging, and you only really get one chance to make a first impression, a good
Yeah.
first impression. And so
Yeah.
I didn't release anything. I didn't talk to anyone really about it, until I started getting feedback from my friends. I would make some samples and drop them off at the restaurants that, we'd go hang out in, or my coworkers at one of the restaurants I worked in. And I was starting to get messages like, can you please leave some in your mailbox, some of this kind? I didn't even have names for them yet.
Yeah. I
And
want to ask you about that after.
it's clearing up my skin. And some people had really asphyxiated skin. And I was like, oh my gosh, wow. I was hoping that it would work on your face, but it was doing great for me. But that's a big jump for women to get a bar soap and wash their face with it. That's kind of,
Yeah.
it's kind of faux pas. You don't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of how it started. And my ego started to become stroked. And I was like, okay, maybe I can do this. So that's kind of how it evolved.
Yeah, it's interesting. You said a couple of things I want to touch on. So number one, I wanted to share, I was going to ask you the question of, who are your influences? Because I know for myself as an entrepreneur, as a woman entrepreneur, we have the inner critic. We also have, potentially, without, not to judge people judging, but when we're not surrounding ourselves with those that are, so I have two questions for you, but when we're not surrounding ourselves with those that are doing what their visions are, it could be hard for us because we kind of feel like this lone gypsy, like, oh my God, maybe I'm not good enough. And who am I to make a bar of soap? Who am I, from small town XYZ, insert name here, because so many people that I've met have been from small town. So it is interesting, as you were sharing with your best friend / manager, how she was actually one of your mentors when you think about it, right? Because people say like, I'm going to pay for a mentor, but sometimes our mentors are the people that move us into a direction that's going to allow us to ignite that inner magic. And so her mentorship, whether it was like negative or positive, was still helped you to evolve into this next step. So can you, and then going back to my other question is, did you have friends that were already entrepreneurs? Did you already hang out with entrepreneurs, or what did that look like for you? I'm super curious about that.
Yeah. I totally agree with you as far as, mentors and people steering you in the right direction. And I call those people my soulmates. Even if my experience is heartbreaking and soul crushing, they come into your life for a specific reason. And if you're not ready to accept that, then you just keep moving along. And it tends to, come to a point where those things start slapping you in the face if you're not open to them, and if you can't acknowledge that you have weaknesses and that you still have to grow and stuff like that. And so I maybe not exactly at the time when you get a comment or an opinion or whatever that you don't want to hear, but I really do sit on things like that, and I try and grow and just evolve,
Right.
So yeah,
it's amazing. The other thing I want to share with you what's that?
Sorry, I know you asked me two questions there, and I
Oh, no, don't worry. No, just the first one was just talking about like mentors. I was going to ask you like so like, for instance, like who have your mentors been? Like, did you have a mentor, or, your influence? Because for me, one of the things that people will always hear me say, whether it's on social media, on my podcast, or my friend circle, is that I'm very mindful of who I'm surrounding myself with. And I'm very mindful. I have friends, mentors, business partners, family, and I love everyone equally. However, who I listen to is very important. So if I'm looking to have a lofty vision, like right now, say I'm working on a fundraiser to raise money for, stray and abandoned dogs. That's one of my main projects right now. I am looking to get advice from people who have been where I want to be. Right. And so can you touch on that? Like, maybe you didn't have a lot of entrepreneurial friends. Did you find mentors, books? Is there anything that you could think that was helping you in that defining moment? Because one of the things you said is you always wanted to be perfect at things, but you clearly said very eloquently, but you decided that you were going to go for this anyway. So can you touch on any of that resonates with you? Because I love for people to hear you don't have to be perfect. Progression is more important than perfection. And so what made you say, screw it? I don't really know what I'm doing. I've never made bar soap. Essential oils, you started to look into it, and now you started to master your craft. So can you touch on that and anything that you feel would be valuable?
Yeah, for sure. Well, growing up, my dad had his own construction company. And so, right off the bat, we were privy to the ups and downs, the, you know, having to maintain positivity, all of that kind of thing. And then, you know, working in the service industry, my boss, the family that I worked for, they stopped their careers to open this restaurant. And so I could see immediately, you know, how hard they worked, how stressed out they were. You know, it's so much money. It's just a lot of investment in your time. And then customers, so many of my customers were entrepreneurs, and
Yeah.
my friends were entrepreneurs, and my husband, well, boyfriend at the time, he's a
Yeah.
musician, a touring musician with no
Wow.
other income. And so,
Wow.
you know, you recognize people following their passion and their talents, and sacrificing, you know, financial stability
Mhm.
because they're following their heart. And so, so many of my friends and family have been really incredible mentors to me.
Right.
The lady that designed my logo, Noella Cottenham, she is an incredible sign maker. She makes beautiful farm signs and, gosh, all kinds of signs, hand carved out of wood. She's
Mhm.
amazing. And she sells her signs all over the world. And she was a
Wow.
huge mentor for me. There were times in the beginning I could cry. I'm such an emotional person, so I'm gonna try not to go into the ugly
No,
cry
you
every
whatever works. No, don't worry. Just you'll make me cry. It'll be a cry fest. Don't worry about it.
Okay. So yeah, when I was having a really crappy day or, you know, very doubtful, I would drive up to Williamstown, and, you know, it was half an hour drive from here, and just chat with her. Like, you know,
Mhm.
should I continue? I need a pep talk. And she would share her highs and lows with me. And I would leave, you know, with the tunes cranked again, feeling empowered and, you know, okay, I got this. And so it's people like that. And I've have a few of them that have
Wow.
been such like an inspiration to me, and honestly helped me to continue, you know, moving forward and pushing hard forward. And so, yeah, just she's one of so many. I
Wow.
read a book by Derek Sivers. I
What is
can't
that?
remember it. The author is Derek Sivers,
Yeah.
Sivers. I can't remember the
Mhm.
name of this little book that I read, but it was
Mhm.
so inspirational. And at that time, I was quite naive, just starting off Ground Soap, and I sent him an email.
Good for
And my
you.
and my husband was like, "Why did you do that?" And I was like, "Well, you know, he said at the end of his book, if you have any questions, you know, this is my email,
Perfect.
and I have questions." And so what, like, well, I need to ask these questions. And he wrote back. He
Oh,
gave me so much constructive advice. And, you know, 10 years later, oh, he said, if you have a lemongrass bar, you know, I'd love to buy one. I didn't have a lemongrass bar, but just 5 years ago, we came out with Frankly Lemongrass. And my husband said, you should send one to Derek Sivers. I totally
yeah.
forgot about it. But
Wow.
he took that little book and passed it on to his bandmates while they were on tour. And every single one of those band members read that book, and it
Oh my God.
inspired a couple of them. And I have no idea where that book is. I wrote a few quotes of my own in that book, and I can't even remember them. I wanted that book back so I could, you know, read back on. But yeah, I don't know where that is. But I'm sure it's created a lot of, you know, great
Impact.
energy for, yeah,
Yeah.
for the people that have read it. So
I'm
yeah,
gonna definitely
that's
look up that book. That's
yeah.
amazing. And it's so beautiful that you shared that story because one thing that a quote that comes into my mind was almost 20 years ago when I was just starting to be an entrepreneur. And one of my mentors at the time had said, don't procrastinate a prompting. And
Oh,
now, well, I mean, that was like literally in 2007. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it. Don't procrastinate a prompting because you just never know where it's going to take somebody else, right? And I'm gonna
yeah,
couple it with another mentor of mine because I'm just addicted to mentors because I'm like, if I don't know something, I just need to find people who know so that I can know that
absolutely.
it's possible. And then
Yep.
another thing that someone had said to me that really these are things that just like touch my heart where I'm like, oh shit, you know. Another mentor, and maybe this could be helpful, said, when you make it about you, you've missed the point.
Mhm.
And I'm like, wow. So like whenever we have those moments that are scary, when you went from, and I want to actually touch on how you evolved from where you started to then, you know, that grit that brought you to having clients all over the world. But when we do have something that can ground us, no pun intended, to
Yeah.
stop the ego at the knees and stop the inner critic and say, thank you so much, I appreciate it, but that's not where I'm at right now. So,
Yeah.
those are things that have helped me, especially in like being in wellness for myself and then working with people and helping other people and contributing the way that you are with your brand, is not making it about us, remembering like we're doing it for contribution. Contribution is currency, and even
Mhm.
going back, I want to talk to you more in a little bit about like wealth and money and like what that looks like for you in terms, not your money, but like what that looks like from you as a mindset. So
Yeah.
can you share then what inside of you helped you to thrive, to get from, okay, now this is where I'm at. This is where I want to keep on going. And what allowed you, like, what was that inside of you or someone that supported you to say, like, keep going and make it bigger and continue to evolve this lofty vision into something that is a global brand? What does that look like for you?
Hmm. Well, a huge part of it was my customers, like, or my potential customers, the people that were trying the soap and the feedback that I was getting. And I have thought, okay, wow, I did do something. I did create something awesome and it is working. And I
Right.
worked on those recipes for over a year before I launched anything. And like I said earlier, and so that feedback proved to me that there was something behind this, and it validated my gut, the my intuition, just how I was
Yeah.
feeling. No, you can do this for yourself. You can respect yourself enough to make these changes for you. And the
Yeah.
I gave my grandmother, my oma, she loved monarch butterflies, and I gave
Oh,
her this monarch butterfly from an Oprah magazine. You remember when we used to um, create vision boards?
I still
I mean,
do. I'm,
okay, okay.
yes.
I love
Amazing.
vision
Yeah.
boards. And so, I had all these Oprah magazines, and sorry, Oprah, but I would cut them up, and because she had beautiful pictures, and I would
Yeah.
make these vision boards. And I found this beautiful monarch butterfly, and I found also a quote from one of her magazines, and it was from the quote is, "Make visible what without you might perhaps have never been seen." And so I
Wow.
cut that quote and I pasted it underneath this monarch butterfly, and I gave it to her. And she framed it and she put it by her front door. And I have that. I took it back, but I read that often. And it's
Mhm.
it's in my room where I, get ready in the morning, and I see it. I see it a couple of times a week, and it reminds me where I was at that time. My
Yeah.
mindset and how I had to push through. And
Yeah.
um, gosh, I lost my train of thought. And so I just, those inspirational, those moments, I really hung on to those to help me push through
Mhm.
those difficult times. And yeah, the customers are the ones that really kept me motivated. My family, of course, and my
Yeah.
friends, and I just loved what I was doing. I loved picking out the fabric. I loved, smelling the smells when I was making it. I was just happy. And so
Yeah.
I wanted to, continue in that direction. And I knew what I had to do. And like I said, I was pretty naive. And so I think feeling like that is really helpful, because your ego is in check, and I'm really familiar with my ego. I'm really, I can talk to it. I can tell it to shut the hell up, like stop filling my head with that stuff that I don't need to hear. And I'm pretty in tune with yeah, I'm pretty in tune, I'd say. And
Right.
so
I love that.
just listen to my gut, and the yeses were encouraging, the nos were motivating.
Mhm.
And yeah, we didn't even have I didn't even have a GPS, and I was doing sales in Toronto. My husband would say, okay, when you get to the east end of Toronto, the beaches,
That's where I
you
found your ground soap, in the
oh,
beaches.
oh my gosh, that's awesome.
It was that
That's
re it
amazing.
was that that's and I mean, and I don't mean to cut you off, but yeah, so keep
Yeah,
going, and I'll share my story after you
I
shared
know
your.
exactly. I know what story you're talking about. Yeah,
Mhm.
and they were amazing family. That store doesn't exist anymore, but they were really awesome and
Aw.
also inspirational. So these store owners, they were encouraging. They loved the soap. They would run out. I would get, like, it was just it. People were loving it, and it was word of mouth. And so it was it
Yeah.
was no pun intended, growing very organically. And
Yeah.
so my husband would say, okay, this is your first stop. And I'd have a big list, and I had a map in my front seat, and
Oh
I
my
was
God.
winging it. And I was
Yeah.
driving a Standard, and, like stalling in the, downtown on Bloor and
Wow.
stuff. It was fun. Like, I was on my adventure. I had some freedom. And so, yeah, I was still working in the service industry at that time.
Wow.
I didn't stop serving until 2012, like 2 weeks before I had my daughter. And then once Adrian came along, I couldn't juggle all three. So
Yeah.
I just plunged into ground soap and gave it all I have. So
That's
yeah,
amazing.
that's
And as you had said too about having the freedom. So one thing I would love to ask you too, because I feel for myself as an entrepreneur, we talk about wealth, we talk about, monetizing your brand, and sometimes there could be that stigma. And one thing that
mhm,
I've learned along the way, because I did have, and maybe touch on this as well, in my family, my past, our families always did the best that they could with what they had. And so I grew up like many people, I'm not alone, is that having I had these limiting beliefs of like, money doesn't grow on trees, just take enough to get by, don't ask for more than you need. And so, and it's totally like, hey, listen. And in that, I had to start to learn for myself, and it took a couple of decades, and I'm still literally in the thick of it, of
mhm,
understanding the value of money. And one thing that really touched me many years ago that I had, learned about was that money just makes you more of who you already are. So instead of like money is the root of all evil, like you get all these different stigmas, we don't realize what that's doing, right? I met a woman at
mhm,
a networking event once. She was like 93 years old at a networking event. And I was waiting for this networking event to start. And she came over to me. I've never met her. And she had said something to me. She goes, your cells eavesdrop on your thoughts. And I'm like, who are you? And so one of the things I realized is, and as I'm growing and learning, personal development, spiritual development, is that we have to be very careful what we say to ourselves, to
mhm.
others, what we allow others to say to us. So is there anything around, as you were growing the last 15 years, going from, your kitchen to, France, is there anything that you learned about yourself regarding the ability to allow yourself to grow, to have that financial wealth? Was there anything for you that you could share? That was there like a stigma that you had to let go of, or limiting beliefs that you had to let go of, or maybe you still are, that you do deserve
Mhm.
to grow, that you do deserve to be an example for other people, for your daughter, right? I know
Mhm.
you have a son as well too, a stepson.
Yep.
So is there anything that you want to share on that? I think that's so valuable for people maybe just starting out, or even someone like myself, 20 years in. I'm
Yep.
still every day having to shut the noise down of why should you do this?
That's
Right?
right.
So I
That's
would love for you to touch on that, because it's a really sensitive subject for many people.
It is very sensitive, and it really. I think that money drives our ego in a lot of ways. If we're not, if we haven't been raised a certain way, it's kind of hard to say, because I've never been rich, financially, and so yeah, I've never been in that mindset, I guess. And having grown up a lot like you, there wasn't an abundance. Sometimes there was a little bit of a high point and stuff, but there wasn't an abundance of money, and quite often it was a struggle. And that's part of being an entrepreneur. And
Mhm.
my mom was really mom my mom was really the backbone. My mom was
Yeah.
really the backbone of our family. Like, she was the stability. And so I knew that that needed to happen in life, but also the risk was really tempting for me. And still now, with dealing with finances and stuff like that, I understand cash flow. I understand how that works. Um gosh, I think I struggle with it daily, kind of too. I'm always thinking about that next big
Milestone?
job, or that next big part of me.
I was gonna say milestone, but you meant like, yeah, that next big
Yes.
project or next big
Yes, the next big project or milestone, and
responsibility. Yeah.
how that's going to, the money and how that's going to help, and how I'll be able to, grow ground soap even more. And so when I think about money now, I think about how it can facilitate things within the business, but it's still hard for me to keep it, because when you
Mhm.
grow up without a lot of it, you well, for me, I felt like I needed to prove to people with exterior, with clothing,
Yeah.
vehicles, or all of those materialistic things.
Mhm.
That becomes kind of a protective shield, and
Mhm.
so that hides, your family's, instability. And I think so many of us grow up that way, where you don't want
Yeah.
people to know. And that's
Yeah.
so crazy, because the
It is.
majority of us live like that. It is
Exactly.
a struggle, especially now. I mean, a lot of
Mhm.
people, I think, that were financially stable are also getting a bit of a wake up call, and they can uh, they put themselves, they understand how it feels
Yeah.
a little bit more, and so they can relate. And so I like to be honest about those things. People think, oh,
Mhm.
you're selling your soap in France, you must be doing so well, and you're in all of these stores. And I remember uh, um, a friend of mine, we were at a round table of entrepreneurs. I was just starting off, and some of them were multimillionaires. And I remember after the meeting talking to this guy in the parking lot. I said, I can't wait to get to where you're at. And he said, you know what, Angela, it's all relative. If you're making $1 million, your costs are going to be like this. And that
Yeah.
that was really helpful information, because I thought, yeah, you're right. And now I totally get it. It really is all about the cash flow. It facilitates things. And so I think, just really talking to people, asking
Mhm.
questions,
Mhm.
maintaining an open mind, and open to constructive criticism, not taking things personally, just
Yeah.
really focused. I think that really helps with not making the finances your primary objective.
Or
I
your
feel that,
identity.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
hard, because, you want, for me, I wanted everything to be perfect, of course, right away. I wanted that image. I wanted people to think, compare me to, one of my favorite products, like Aveda. And I wasn't even close to that. I was in my
Yeah.
kitchen. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. We put these pressures on ourselves, and these, standards that we have to, meet right away. And so that money is involved in all of that.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I'm more conscious of it now, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
The interesting thing too is that, we have the family, experiences, but at the end of the day, our parents only knew what they were taught. Listen,
That's
if
right.
was there any, like, money management course for us in high school? No.
Never.
We literally
Yeah.
had to, and I say this even about business, build the parachute on the way down, and my parachute is, like, half
That's a
inflated,
good one.
and it's just but I really believe that we are meant to, as adults, as we grow, is to just start to master our own life and take
Yeah.
the amazing wealth that we were given from our parents, because I think about, like, I know your family, I know my family, regardless of, like, how much money we had, I felt a richness in my heart. And so that richness and that
Yes.
wealth in my heart could not ever be even adequate to compare to $1 million in my bank. And we also
Absolutely.
and it's not to take away from money, but I also want to share the reality of, like, you could have someone who has $1 billion in the bank, but they may feel soulfully empty. And you
Yes.
may have someone who has 10,000 in the bank, or like they come to Canada or they come to the US or wherever. I'm in Mexico, but with $100 in their back pocket, but their spirit is wealthier than their bank account. And I really believe
Absolutely.
that it's important for people to understand that your motivation and your aspirations can come from how wealthy you feel inside with the vision that you have, and not
Mhm.
so much to identify it like, well, because I'm not Aveda. Well, Aveda had to start from somewhere. One of the things I was thinking about as I was preparing to chat with you today was everyone started somewhere. No one started all ready to go, right? And
That's
so there's
right.
always that behind the scenes. And I think about my own business, like the amount of, like, oh my gosh, the energy that it took for me to create certain things that I had been successful, whatever you want to deem successful, and having to
Mhm.
have the opportunity when those things are no longer like doing what they used to do, taking those skills of who I am in and not what I do. And the same thing
Yeah.
with you. It's like you're taking who you are, what you've grown, the amazing character traits from your parents,
Yeah,
regardless of what their
absolutely.
bank account was, is that that's who you are. And you're taking that into this ground soap empire that you've created that will probably flourish for the next 15 years, 30 years. Or if it for some reason didn't, you would still be the you that created that can then create something else through who you are.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah,
So taking the
absolutely.
stigma away from wealth as just money.
Yeah, yeah, and when you're in tune with who you are, and the things that you love, and the things that ignite that curiosity, and that hunger for your passion. Yeah, money is kind of like on the side, because you're on a mission, and you
Yeah.
just want that happiness to evolve. And
Hmm.
when it does, the money just ends up coming, because you're doing
It
what you
really does.
love, and that energy is in what you're doing, what you're
Right.
making, or the people, like, yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't think until you experience that, not necessarily being an entrepreneur and pushing your product through the hard times, but when you really just experience who you are, and like, okay, this is a part of me, you can grow on that. And yeah, it's amazing. And we're really, really lucky that we had such incredible love and amazing lessons and strong friendships growing up, and
Hmm.
open communication with our parents.
Yeah.
They talked to us about everything. There was no facade. We got it. We understood.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so those are really valuable lessons and awesome memories that I have. And they're things that we laugh about now, like
Oh
getting
gosh.
our
Yeah.
fridge repossessed. Like getting your fridge repossessed? Like,
Oh my
that's ridiculous. My mom's not
Wow.
home, my sisters and I, and here come
Oh,
these two guys to the door, and we have to empty our fridge out on the counter, and they take our fridge away. Like,
oh,
that's effing hilarious right now. Like, for me to think
wow.
back, like, my sisters and I, we and my mom, we all laugh at that. Like, what an experience, but it happened, and
Right.
we still ate. We had a
Yeah.
fridge the next day.
Yeah.
Like, it was probably a
Wow.
forgotten couple of forgotten payments or whatever. But like, I don't know. And I think honestly, those growing up like that, um, it allowed me to be fearless. Like, I know what it's
Mhm.
like to have a lot, and I know what it's like to have nothing.
Yeah,
Like, I'm
absolutely.
okay either
And are you
way.
not the
Like,
same
I love
person? You're the same
it.
person with a lot and with a little. It doesn't change. And that's so important to know. And even you sharing
Yeah.
that story of the fridge, imagine the resilience that I could just picture it. I know the story.
Yeah.
But the resilience that you have, right? Like I'm gonna do
Yeah.
this with or without a fridge. Like I
Yeah.
could still, and so it's amazing what you have been able to experience those things. So you're not protected from the hardship of life.
Yeah.
And I think that's
Yeah.
really like you have a backbone. People have a backbone. And it's the stories like that that ignite people, right? It's pretty profound. I do want to I love it. Oh, come on. That is
That's
wild. That
that's
is
that's why it's called that,
come
because I
on.
had the backbone to start my business. Every soap that I have has almost a personal story attached to it. So
Wow.
this is kind of a revelation I had last year, actually, while working here in the shop, and I went quickly to write it down. And I thought, you know what? I feel like an artist, like I've written songs. Like, these are so personal to me. It's not just a
Yeah.
product that I'm launching out there. It's
Yeah.
it's like what I was going through at the time, and what inspired me to name it.
Wow.
Smells that emulate the feeling. Like, it's really a personal thing for me. And so, yeah, that's kind of
Wow.
funny you said that. Yeah.
That's I
Sorry,
mean,
I
I did not know
totally.
I did not know you had that, but I do want to touch on some practical things. So I did. So I was living in the beaches. This was in 2013. And it was my favorite organic store that had my organic gluten-free. And then I remember exactly walking into like, cause I love products, right? And I remember there was like that you were on like a tour, like you had, I knew exactly where you were. And I was like, oh, this is my friend's soap. And it really, I have to tell you, like I think I did tag you on Facebook. And
Yes, that's
I really want to talk about two things. Number one, what it feels like to see somebody else win, like to see you win. And I will tell you, like at that time in my life, I was going through something significant, and your success in that impacted me to stand with a taller backbone. And so you wouldn't know it, right? But I
no.
was like, and I'm almost like, F this, I can do this. And
Yeah.
I remember seeing it. I bought 3 bars, and then I also used the bars, and oh my gosh, I remember I would use it on my face, and I would never use bar soap on my face. And but I was like, I think I would like messaged you, and then you're sharing, and so I used it. So your stuff is amazing. It's magical. Like it truly is actually magical. So I want to touch on what makes you different, right? And
Mhm.
outside of just your essence and your uniqueness, but truly your products are amazing. So can you talk about what that is, and how, like, the organic side of it, anything that
Mhm.
you feel it would be valuable to understand about your actual product?
Yeah, sure. So, like I mentioned earlier, um, being from a small town, you want to make a good first impression, and people talk. And I knew a lot of people from working in the service industry, and I was really afraid that people were going to make fun of me. And so I thought, it needs to be the best, and uh, it has to be. And so my goal was to make the best soap that I possibly can, like use the best ingredients. Um, don't uh, don't settle for anything less. And
Mhm.
I would work a shift, and I would make $250, let's say, in tips or whatever it was, quite a bit of money. And I think,
Yeah.
okay, that's going to buy me a box of organic, unrefined shea butter.
Wow.
And so I would save and then buy my ingredients. And I did a small business course. I applied for it through the college here, and
Mhm.
it was called the C program, the self. Oh gosh, I can't remember now. Anyway, it was a C program, and so I got to write
Mhm.
my business plan. I got to, really dive into what the things I needed to start off would be. And so that was, I knew that the administrative side of things was just as important as the product. And like
Mhm.
we were saying, we didn't have courses in business or
No.
managing money or anything like that. But I knew that it was really, really important. And so I'd seen a lot of other businesses fail because of it. So the ingredients were the most important thing. Secondly,
Mhm.
was the packaging. I wanted to make sure that the customers couldn't open the packaging, because I'm one of them. If it
Yeah.
smells good, I will find a way to make it work for me. Or I used to. I have really curly, thick hair. If the
Mhm.
product smelled amazing and it was for thinning fine hair, I would buy it just because it smells amazing. Like, I'll
Wow,
use it
yeah.
as a leave-in conditioner or something. And so the smell was really important to me, and the packaging and the base ingredients of the soap. So the
Yeah.
packaging, I chose a batik fabric. My mom was born in Indonesia. She's Dutch. And my grandmother would make us little dolls and stuff like that, and their clothing would be made out of batik. And so I really loved that. I thought, if it's wrapped in fabric, then people can smell the product through the fabric. It's really
Yeah.
pretty, and they can use the fabric for something else. They can collect it. They can make little doll clothes out of it,
Mhm.
dog bandanas, whatever. And so but I was starting from my home. I didn't think
Yeah.
that my boutique package, that I'd have to be hand wrapping, like thousands a year, and developing potentially wrist problems
Oh my
because I
god.
had all these soap wrap. I wasn't thinking that far ahead.
Yeah.
um, so I gathered all these expensive ingredients. I actually, a couple of years after I started, went to Indonesia with my sister Jen to source out a batik manufacturer. I got to see how they
Wow.
hand dye, hand stamp all of the batik. It was an
Oh
incredible
my gosh.
day. to and from Indonesia trip. It was pretty bonkers. But yeah, so I was meeting all these really cool people, and all these awesome things were, becoming attached to the product. But what makes our soap so amazing are the ingredients, are the base oils and butters. They're all organic. They're all unrefined. So they don't go through any process of, stripping away the benefits that all of these ingredients have. We only use pure essential oils, and we only use flower powders and clays and stuff that are grown or come from the earth. So that's why it's called ground soap.
I love that.
It was really, well, thanks. It's been a name that I, have kind of second guessed going along the way, because people think, oh, it's ground up, or it's made from ground, or it's
Right.
So I thought, oh geez, like maybe I should have thought that over a little bit better, but it is what it is. And the handprint on the logo is actually my stepson Cameron's. He was like 7, I think, at the time, 8,
Wow.
when we started, and I wanted this connection to the earth. And so many business logos that I was seeing out there were, the planet with, Mother Earth, Mother's hands on it, kind of stuff. And I wanted something like that. And I thought, well, it started for me in the garden. My hands were dirty. I love the smell of dirt. I could be outside in my garden all day, covered in mud. And so I was just like, that's my connection. That's my personal connection. But of course, the family was all involved. And I said to Cameron, okay, we're just going to mix up a little bit of plant dirt, and I want, in water, and I want you to rub your hand around it on the plate. And we put a bunch of pieces of paper all the way down the hall. And I said, I want you to run as fast as you can and wipe out on the piece of paper, so we have like splash marks and stuff. And so he was totally into that, of course. And we did it, I don't know, 8 times or so, until we got the perfect handprint. And I still have the muddy handprint.
Wow.
And so my friend Noella, the sign maker, I brought it to her, and she created the digital, oh gosh, the light's not so great. Handprint.
Amazing.
She scanned it, and so that's kind of how that came to be. And so all the ingredients that we use are amazing. They're Ayurvedic grade, the flowers and the clays that we use. So like chamomile powder, and one of my favorites is cherry bark powder. It smells amazing, which was inspired by the Aveda cherry bark shampoo, which is the scent I'm absolutely obsessed with. So I wanted to make the best soap that I possibly could. And honest to God, I can't find another soap that's as good as mine out there. With, just searching on the internet, I would love to, say to my customers, I challenge you to find a soap that honestly is comparable to mine. I wish I had the finances to, generate a larger audience so that people could try it, but it's just me. And, and it's hard to spread that word, but I'm so proud of it. And I wouldn't honestly change a thing that I do. Like we've been in France for 12 years now. We've had our distribution there, and people love it. And I'm really proud. I'm so happy that I followed my gut, and I, gave myself a kick in the ass and said, you have to do this, like, stop procrastinating. So,
and I think the thing with that too is amazing is the fact that you're sticking to your integrity. And as you'd mentioned too, there are, again, not going to name companies, there's no point, but there are companies that their intentions are pure, just like many of their products. And then they shift, and then they lose their intention, or they lose that vision of wanting to maintain the integrity. And then the money starts to be more of the driving force. And then the integrity goes down, and then the product ingredients start to shift. And then you're left at the end with nothing that you started with. So I find that so beautiful that you're saying that 15 years in. So this is not 5 years in, this is 15 years in, that you are still maintaining that integrity. And so I would love to ask you as well too, your integrity obviously is one of them. So what are some of the values that you have found? And also maybe what are some things you learned about yourself in the process of creating something for such a long period of time that you may not have known about yourself before? Like, wow, look at this. Like, I have a backbone, or I've created a backbone. So like, I would love to know, because we grow when we're growing other things and growing through things and evolving that we may not
Mhm.
have understood about ourselves before. So can you touch on that?
Oh my gosh, there's a huge one. Huge. So again, working in the service industry, the family that I worked for, this large restaurant chain, they worked so hard. And I was only 18 when I started working there. I was still in my last year of high school,
Wow.
and the franchise was really cool. It was new to Cornwall. It was I was so proud to be working there, and but this one manager, when before we even opened, because it was such a structured franchise, we had a lot of tests to do. So we had
Mhm.
to memorize the menu inside and out. We had to be able to suggestive sell to our customers, and meet and greet within 30 seconds, and upsell, and all that kind of stuff. And so um, uh, looking back, I really value having worked in the service industry for as long as I did, because it taught me how to comfortably speak to people, how to
Mhm.
sell,
Yep.
sell
Yep.
anything. If
Yep.
you learn about the product, then you can talk confidently about it. And so that was one thing that I really embraced. I thought, you know what, I did learn a lot. Like I
Mhm.
shouldn't poo-poo that part of my life, because it was so educational. And I
Mhm.
didn't go to post-secondary school until I had worked in the service industry for about 6 years. I was like an overage student going to Concordia, and I did 1 year. It wasn't for me. I could
Mhm.
not sit in a class and listen to a professor. I'm like definitely sidetracked all the time. I'm such a
Yeah.
dreamer, and so I knew, okay, that's not for me. I tried it. Let's go back to the restaurant, and I did. I went back to the restaurant, went back to this specific restaurant, and the main manager there, the general manager, she was quite a frustrating woman to work for. She was an accountant. She wasn't good at all with customer service or public relations.
Yeah.
She had a reputation for being like a hardcore B word,
Yeah.
and she was so intimidating. And before the franchise even opened, I told you we had all these tests. We had all the POS systems set up on the bar, and all of us had to go up to these computers and type in pretend orders, and practice. And I was so nervous. My palms were really sweaty. I couldn't concentrate. I had studied harder for that menu test and that drink test than I had for my exams.
Oh my
My
gosh.
exams were the same week, and I was studying harder for those menu tests. And
Wow.
so that was a huge thing, but that's how petrifying this woman was. But she
Yeah.
was so smart, so meticulous. Like I said, she was an accountant, so she was always on. Like, you finished 15 minutes ago. How come you didn't clock out? This can't be wasted, or just all of those things that were like, you're making so much money. Who cares? Like, or
Yeah. Yeah.
giving a draft beer away to my friend, like, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Sherry can pay for it because she's such a B word. I'm going to give this to you for free. And
Yeah.
so, having worked there for a really, really long time, the frustration that I let her, I guess, fester inside of me.
Yeah.
I really resented her. I really disliked her. And if somebody asked me who's the person that you dislike the most, it would be her. Like, not now, but it definitely was her. And so years and years and years go by. Ground Soap, I think it was probably, gosh, maybe just 5 or 6 years ago. I would see her out often and stuff and say hi, and everything was great. However, I still really resented her. She
Yeah.
still agitated me when I thought about her. And I thought, why? Like, why did I'm an adult now. I get it. Why did I dislike her so much? And it's because it's huge for me. It's because she had a strength that I didn't have. I was envious.
Yeah.
And that was managing money. That was managing her business. That was being in control and not being afraid of managing her business, like counting
Wow.
those dollars and cents and, being on top of things. And so, uh, and
Amazing.
so, yeah. And so I really reflected on that for a really long time. And I thought, yeah, that's right. That's the thing. I'm jealous. I'm envious. I'm disappointed in myself for not seeing that. But I
Yeah.
wasn't raised that way. We didn't
Yeah.
look at money that way. And
Yeah.
we really didn't talk about it that much. And so I just thought that she was being like a penny pincher, and I
Yeah.
wasn't interested in that. And so really, I had to tell her. And
Good for
so,
you.
yeah, and so I met her. I saw her in the Food Basics parking lot, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, and we were chatting. We were laughing and stuff like that. Of course, because we have incredible memories. Like, that restaurant was a huge part of my life. I have such amazing
Mhm.
friends. And so we were sharing a story and laughing about it and talking about a potential reunion, and which we had last year, which is quite
Oh my
awesome.
gosh.
But I said to her, she's like, "How are you doing, Ange?" And I said, "You know what, Cher? I I said, I have to tell you something." I said, the reputation that you had in the restaurant. Of course she knew. Um, I said, I just want you to know that, having been in business, for 10 years now or so, I really respect what you did. And it really taught me something, because it was something that I didn't recognize was so important, hugely important. When I
Yeah.
had employees, wrapping soap and doing things, they start talking, or they get really relaxed. And I'm a pretty chill person, but then I was like, that's like $5. It's been 15 minutes. That's $5 of my money that
Wow.
are just going down the drain. And so I started to think that way. And that's
Oh,
when I had that revelation. I was like, of course, it's
yeah.
15 minutes. Like, that adds up. 15 minutes equals $20. But
Yeah.
the people working for you don't think that way. They don't
Yeah.
think that way at all. They think, oh wow, that's a $500. Wow, she had three $500 orders. That's $1,500 that she has. No, it's not. It might
No, it's
be
not.
$100 that I get to take home out of that
Right.
$1,500, because it has to cover all of the costs. It has to cover CPP and EI, and you just don't think about that. And you don't think about the hours and hours and hours that you spend doing all the administrative stuff behind the scenes. That's not the
Yeah.
manufacturing or the sales. So it's all those different hats, all those different also those different lessons that I've learned. And those have been my educators. Didn't go to school,
Wow.
but those
Yeah.
are my huge teachers. Yeah, so I'm very thankful for those
Yeah.
hard, real learning experiences.
Do you remember what she said back to you? I'm curious. I mean,
Uh,
she probably felt so grateful for you to share that.
yeah, for sure. She really did. We both teared up. Of course, I was like ugly crying as soon as I opened my mouth to tell her the story. But she's definitely seen me ugly cry many times, during the times that we worked together, and some of them caused by her. But yeah, it was just a really great moment, and I was like, oh my God, I felt
Yeah.
so I felt so full of more energy, because I let it out. It was like, when you have this, these bricks on your chest, it's like
Mhm.
it's your throat chakra, right? There's
Yeah.
something that you need to expel, and that was one of them. It was like
Wow.
sitting there for a long time. Just that little thing, but it was a huge thing that I needed to learn, and I wasn't accepting it yet. And so I'm I'm really thankful that happened, and that I had that kind of
Mhm.
aha moment. Mhm.
That's so beautiful. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. And it's interesting too because again, I was having a conversation with a couple of my girlfriends the other day, and and we're talking about enlightenment because there's no such thing really, right? Well, maybe that I'm not the expert, but I said, I don't really believe in enlightenment. I believe that we're here to have a level of self-awareness. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like, as we're moving through life, like if I think about myself at 20, myself at 30, now I'm 47, I'm like, my level of self-awareness in my life just continues to evolve. It's not about I've reached this and I've attained this and my outcome has been achieved, but it really just is like, how much closer am I to a level of self-awareness? So
Yeah.
that for me, as you're sharing, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm trying not to cry because it's such a beautiful level of self-awareness and empathy.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah, this
Mm-hmm.
empathy for her that has allowed you to be able to see that. And then you're also just able to see in yourself something that you wanted to attain. And it's interesting. I was literally just watching while I was getting ready. You're not going to, it's unbelievable. I was watching this 11-minute podcast clip from this woman. I don't know who she is. And it talked about judgment and it
Mm.
talked about the truth around judgment. I literally, this was 10 minutes before we got on. I'm like, why am I still watching this? Because it just came on YouTube as I was trying to get something else. And she says that the thing about judgment that we always say is like, it's never about you. Like the person that
Mm.
you're judging, it's never about them. It's always about us. And you
Yeah, it is.
literally just said exactly what she said. And I think it's really important for us is when we're judging or when we're being judged, it's just something within them that they just don't feel like they have.
Yeah.
Right? Or whatever that is. And I think that's so beautiful that you were able to come around and say, that is why she triggered me. She's a trigger because
Yeah.
I saw in her what I wish I could see in myself. And then now you start to see it in yourself and then you're able to heal that. Like, how powerful is that?
So huge.
That's
Absolutely.
so huge.
Yeah, it
I would
was.
love, yeah, I would love to, as we're closing out, I always like to ask a question. It's always kind of different. But I know that you have, your two children. So I will even I'll touch on, say, your daughter. I would love
Okay.
for you, and I know that you are very close to your mom, and your sisters. I would love to know for you through all of this as you're still continuing to evolve and, almost even just still starting.
Yeah.
What would you say to your daughter if you could say to her, so how old is she now?
She just turned 12.
Wow, that's
Mhm.
amazing.
I
So
actually
what would
our first order to France, I shipped the day before I delivered her. Yeah,
My goodness.
I know,
That
I
is
know.
so crazy.
It's pretty funny.
Wow. The birth of your international business and the birth of your daughter.
Yeah, yeah.
So I would love to know from you, like if you had something to say to her as, as she's growing up to remind herself of while she's going through, because again, she's 12, we've been there. We know what
Mhm,
comes after. So is there
mhm.
anything that you would like to say to her, some wisdom from you through your journey, not just with Ground Soap, but as a woman and now as an adult and as a mom that you feel would be valuable for her that maybe that the audience also needs to hear?
Mhm. Um, I think really, and I know she sees this all the time because both my husband and I are entrepreneurs. I mean, he works for somebody right now, but he would
Yeah.
rather not. Our whole life has been about following our hearts and our dreams and kind of sticking to that. And it's just really about that for her. If she
Mhm.
finds something that she really loves, if you can make a career out of it, then why not give that a try?
Yeah.
We have so many opportunities and we don't have to pick just one thing, and that is what we have to stick to.
Yeah.
There's so many different experiences, and they all lend to each other. They all,
Mhm.
like you say, help us to evolve and grow and learn about people. And I just think that's the advice that surrounds her right now. If she wants to do something, she can explore it. She
Yeah.
started a slime business. Little kids
Oh my
love.
god. Stop.
And she started a slime business. And my stepson had already started his own film production business, and he was still in high school. And so Cameron, he said to Adrian, "Look, you need to buy materials first. So I'm going to lend you $400 to buy your materials." He helped her order all of the materials that she needed on Amazon. And
Wow.
he said, "But after you do your sales show, um,
Yeah.
I need that $400 back, and then whatever is left is your profit." And so she learned that really easy, really young. And
Yeah.
and then she was like, "Nah, I don't want to do that again. That's a lot of work." And we're like, "Okay, great."
There you go. You don't know until you know.
Yeah, she learned that lesson, and she learned that what cost is, and what
Yeah.
your yeah, the money that she made, like it was a great learning experience. She still has Adrian's slime shop sign up here
Come
in the
on.
yeah.
Yeah. And you
Yeah.
never know, right? She may come back to it in a few years and say, I think I need to revisit that. Whatever that's meant
Yeah.
to be for her. I think that's
Yeah.
the most important thing is like, let it just be whatever it's meant to be.
Yeah.
It's like
Just follow.
I talk Yeah, it's like the crystallization of the butterfly. I talk about it all the time, and then I was sharing that I didn't realize there was actual science around it, but the cocoon and the caterpillar, it needs
Mhm.
to crack on its own to be the butterfly because the liquid from the inside is what creates the strength of the wings. And I never knew this. It's like I still don't have like a link. I'll send you the link when I find it on the science
Okay.
of it. But we just need to find our way out of our own cocoon, be the
Mhm.
caterpillar, and then find our way to the butterfly. And that's for us to figure out with the
Yeah.
support and the help and the cheerleading of other people. But I think it's really important that, as you said, that is just do what you feel as you're feeling, and that's okay. And it could change over time. I mean, I know I've definitely been, I went to college 3 times. I've done so many different businesses and I love it. And it's about being multi-passionate about who I am in it, who you are in it. The it is could change, right?
Yes,
So that's
exactly.
amazing. I love
And
it.
it's just part of the journey, like
Yeah.
maybe we're supposed to do that. Maybe we're supposed to screw up. Maybe,
Yeah.
like we need to figure it out, and we all do it differently.
Yeah. And maybe it's not even screwing up, you
Exactly.
know? Yeah.
Exactly. I mean,
I
that's
would
what
love
soul
to.
is for.
Yeah. Yeah. I would love to can you share where we could find you? What countries are you in? I'm actually in Mexico. Am I able to I could actually talk to you about I can get stuff shipped in here. Maybe you're not shipping to Mexico, but can you share, what is your social media? Where can we find you? Is there anything special coming up? So that we can stay connected. And I've definitely will put you in the show notes as well too, but share where we could find you.
Okay, well, we supply we the for the majority of our sales right now are online. We don't have any other stores in Europe. We do have our distributor. Well, we have a distributor in France, and so she distributes the products to the locations that she works with. There are
Right.
stores that I don't even know. I don't even know the stores in Europe that she supplies to because she buys it and then
Yes.
distributes it. Um,
Yes.
and in North America, there are a couple in California. We
Nice.
have some stores in the GTA and in Ottawa, and the majority of our sales are online.
That's
We're
amazing.
coming out with, yeah, thank you. I'm hoping to get into the UK. They have Europe has really strict standards for
Regulations. Yeah.
products coming in, and we meet all of them. It was
Oh, wow.
um, yeah, it's really awesome that we gosh, what's the gosh, anyway, I'll have to get back to that after maybe. But yeah, so I'm really hoping to break into the UK within the next year or so. We're coming
Mhm.
out with smaller sizes in boxes,
Okay.
so that will definitely help us get into mainstream grocery. Our bars
Mhm.
are a little bit too big right now for that kind of those kinds of franchises. So
Right.
that's what we're moving towards. But we're about to launch a new tattoo care balm.
Oh,
So
aftercare. Yeah.
it's called Afterglow, and we'll have a soap to go with that. And so that's going to be released within the next couple of weeks. And
That's a
within
huge market.
yeah, I'm pretty excited
Wow.
about that. And
Yeah.
in the past year, we've launched some home products. So we make now a bar soap for your kitchen called the kitchen sink. Is everything you could if you can fit it into your kitchen sink, you could pretty much wash it with this bar, pots and pans, glasses, all that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
then just a couple of weeks ago, we launched our stain stick called the Stain Assassin, and it
Wow.
is kick-ass stain bar. It surprises
Really?
me.
I want
Yeah.
that.
Okay, well, I will send you some for
We'll
sure.
figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
that's
So what
that's
are
the
you
new
most excited as you're moving forward? You're 15 years in, which is like honestly super impressive. And so is there anything like are you so excited? Like what are you so excited about? Or is there anything lofty vision that you have that you want to share and maybe we can hold you to it?
Ooh. Yeah,
But you'll
I'm I'm really excited to get those smaller bars into grocery. That's been
Yeah.
a huge goal of mine. That really helps with cash flow and growth,
Yep.
and that's what we need. We've built this manufacturing spot here to produce 1,200 bars of soap a day. So
Wow, that's crazy.
yeah, we can really manufacture a lot, and we have done that in the past. We've supplied to a U.S. franchise called Earthbound Trading Company, and they have 147 locations around the U.S. And so we know we can do it. We're really excited about that possibility, but I think it's going to happen. I'm chatting with the owners of these larger grocery chains, and they're giving me some really awesome advice. And again, that's a little bit of my naivety. I'm not afraid to go and talk with these people and ask the questions. I don't pretend I know it all, because I learn something new every day, honestly, like especially on my computer. I'm not so great on my computer. My husband has to lock all of the Excel stuff that he created, because I'm like, oh no, I messed it up. So I can make soap. I'm good on that side. But as far as the technology stuff goes, not so great.
And I think that's important too, is to know our zone of genius and then delegate and outsource where we're not the best use of our time. Well, I'm so grateful, Angela Youngs. Yes.
It's another great quote. One Cup at a Time by the founder of Starbucks is an incredible book to read.
Oh, wow.
For an entrepreneur. Yeah.
Okay.
It's really great. Talks about the roller
coaster. And then the other one's
coaster.
Derek Sivers, you mentioned. I'm going to take a look and see what that is. I'm so grateful. I'm so impressed. I adore you. I adore your brand. I love your brand. I'm a client, a customer. So I do know how amazing it is. And just so grateful to hear behind the scenes, literally from your shop that used to be your kitchen. And just seeing you grow has been just such a pleasure. And you're such an inspiration. So thank you so much for being on my Lucy Smiles Living Room podcast. So grateful.
Thank you so much for having me, and you as well, Di.
Oh, thank you.
Mwah.
Thank you, everyone, for taking time to chat with Angela Youngs, the founder of Ground Soap. And just want to remind you, I hope that we had some nuggets that you take from this beautiful conversation with Angela, and also just to remind you to always follow the magic that ignites your own inner essence. So thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Hey friends, thank you again for following and tuning in to the Lucy Smiles Living Room podcast. It really does truly support my mission to help inspire you through our beautiful guests that I also want to thank, who have come on to share their beautiful stories of transformation. If you want to connect with me privately, you can actually go right to my website, lucysmiles.com. Feel free to send to me a personal email. You can also catch my newsletter by subscribing, which also includes my weekly intuitive messages. If you're on social media, you can follow me with my handle, I am Lucy Smiles. And if this was inspiring to you and something helped support you on whatever the journey is that you are going through, please feel free to review, write a comment, and most importantly, if you can subscribe and share this episode and all our other episodes, that would be amazing. My dream and my mission is to truly help you to follow the magic that ignites your inner essence. And so until next time, we will catch you soon. I hope to catch you on the next episode.